Okay, hi everyone, it's me again. So I'm really glad to see a lot of you coming into this talk, and we're really excited because it's the first one for this year. And today we have one of our alumni, Michele, connecting from Germany. And so he graduated from the MA Service Experience Design and Innovation course in 2018. And I saw his profile and I was really excited to hear about his journey, how he got into service design and what has he been doing after graduation. And I learned that he has recently launched a platform for vegan recipes just last year. So it would be really interesting to hear about like what he is doing and what have he been using his skills on his current project. So if you're ready, we're excited to hear about your journey.
Okay, hello everyone. Yeah, as you know, I've done the same course you're probably on, even though it's probably slightly different right now. I started when I finished my course. I started off as a freelance designer. I tried to apply to some internship and stuff, but was a bit late. So I would recommend you to apply for internship while you're studying, which is like a dumb move not to do so before. And anyway, I have to figure out how to employ myself, right? And that was pretty straightforward. And also to find a job wasn't really too hard at the time. I already had previously experience as a product designer and as a UX UI designer, but not professionally, mostly like through my education, my design education. So most of the work I initially got was actually a blend between UX, UI, and service design. And that's actually something that uh, I think like it's very relevant in the market because it's quite renowned compared to, for example, service design work, which is not always well known and it's not always um, something that companies value already, and it sometimes have also blending responsibilities with other professions like product manager, for instance. Even though like the things could be like separate, and that would be the ideal. However, many companies, especially for example, that was my experience with government. Also, government has some blending and responsibility between service design and product management. So for any one of you who is looking forward to work in tech or work in tech related environment, I would suggest to get familiar with like data. And for those of you who already have an experience UX UI, to do sell that as like a blending of the two. So apart from these, and by the way, you can ask me any question you may have related on all of these. I do not expect necessarily to have all of the question at the end. One other interesting thing. So initially, I worked for management consultancies, and I basically filled in all their needs related to design, whether it was UX, UI, or service design. I usually try to kind of like put the foot in the door as a UX, UI, and then sell on top of service design skills, which usually like works really well because the two things can be blended pretty well. And apart from these, then I also worked for many small startups. There's a lot. I was always pretty interested in the startup area, like in startup ecosystem, especially like how a startup grow, what are the key actors within a startup ecosystem, and that's also what my thesis was revolving around. And then also for those of you who are interested in startups, I would 100% recommend not to start one right away, or if you do one, then to also do like a internship in the meanwhile, because it's pretty hard. And then especially if you want to work in tech, it takes so much time to develop, and you can never really expect exactly how long it's going to take to make those things that doing some design work may seem like an immediate or easy thing. They are not. um, and this is something that like I've found out more recently doing my own startup. My own startup is called Synergic Foods. You can see it if you go to synergicfoods.com. And we're basically an AI enhanced platform that simplifies the process of planning, shopping, and cooking for those who want or either to transition to a plant-based diet or that are currently on one. Um, and basically helps people to improve their health and to improve their or reduce their carbon emissions, or have a better understanding of what's the impact that as an individual and as a collective plant-based diet can have environmentally. So for instance, my plan for starting a startup was to identify a clear need, as many of you may be familiar with, because that's at the essence of design, right? And then to create value so that that is solved, but that it's still very far from what entrepreneurship is about. It takes like so much more to get like a company working, other than just like solving a need and then having a way to be paid, right? It takes like a lot about understanding the market. It takes a lot about marketing to get people to know what you're doing and at the right times, and to time well, um, like marketing, public relations, building, being able to manage like shareholders' expectations, and like many of these, and being able to promise things to all sides and still manage the timeline. So it's crazy amount of work. So if you are interested in these kind of things, I 100% recommend to um, relate to a lot of people that are not within the design profession. So especially with people that do work in technology, as in, for instance, like development of technology, and other people that maybe also do marketing and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. I would go straight to the questions, because I think you kind of know more or less the environment in which I've worked. So if you are interested or you have a specific query related to this, I'll be happy to answer those.
Okay, thank you so much for the sharing. I just learned that a lot of our classmates are in the studio together. And do any of us have any questions? You can raise your hands or just maybe turn on the microphone. Okay, so maybe not merely from the audience, but I do have some questions that are sent to me beforehand. So one thing is, so Michelle, how does, because we learned that you have been doing a lot of experience consulting for like government organizations and startups, like for different sectors, and how do these consulting roles lead you to explore entrepreneurship, and how are these consulting jobs different for each other? Do you have different use different sets of skills of service design for different kinds of organizations? How is the experience for that?
So your question is like, what kind of skill sets did I have, did I find most useful between a consultancy and another, and how that is different from entrepreneurship?
Yeah, and also like for we imagine like for governments and like NGOs and startups, they may need different expertise like or advices. Is there anything different between these organizations that we can provide our skills from service design?
Yeah, most definitely. Like I would say, if you want to work for consultancy or entrepreneurship, you have to be willing to do a lot more than you would do for government, or and a lot faster, to work with many more projects at the same time. Whereas with government, it's much more relaxed. So you usually work like on a specific project, not cross projects. So you're multitasking and kind of like separation of concerns for each of the tasks you have at hand. It's much simpler, and also the speed at which government works happen is much slower than, for instance, a consultancy, or even more to a startup, or to, because startup basically every week something relatively big has to happen, and you have a lot to deal with. Consultancy, they not as fast, but you may have things happening across projects, whereas government is much more relaxed, but feels more impactful when you feel like you're doing something for the community, because in general, like consultancy and startups are much more business driven, and everything has collateral in terms of cash. Does it answer your question?
I think so. So I have another questions from the audience is what um, how do you think the skills you learned in the course can be used in entrepreneurship? Is there anything that you found particularly useful or insightful that right now you still go back to the lessons or the experience and they help you in your current project?
I really valued when we went to an actual to support to an actual accelerator, even if it was like not like a well-known or renowned accelerator, or specifically related to a certain type of tech. There's many different types of tech. Like we collaborated with Geovation, and that was quite nice. But I think in general, like if you do want to pursue entrepreneurship, as I said previously, you really have to start deal with like, I would already go and maybe volunteer for like some accelerator or start working there, and like some good one, like for example Techstars or SBC or something like that, because there's so much more to entrepreneurship than just solving a problem. Um, but for example, what I really found really useful was the actual design process, right? Like to always have these really well ingrained in me of like talk to the users, be close to them, try to uh, build a community first, then a solution after, make the feedback loop very close, so that you can find out very quickly things that are not working or working or are not working like the user expects. So these are definitely things that I found really useful. I think that the only thing that you or I had to manage on my own was to deal with people that are not in the design profession and have absolutely no clue what you're talking about, and have a complete different vocabulary for talking about anything, or just even to do a coding course will help you a lot understand what, for example, developers are going through, or marketers go through, and how these all relate to what you're doing, and how you do have to know these things, and you do have to know their vocabulary, and you do have to know exactly how to communicate so that they understand everything instantly.
So I'm curious that you talked about like dealing with people from different backgrounds. Do you have any examples during the starting the Synergic Food platform?
Um, sure. Yeah, I mean, like every time you just try to communicate everything, even between designers, right? There's a degree of misunderstanding, and then the more you want things to be effective, the less that degree of misunderstanding you want. So, for instance, if you talk with a developer like my co-founder, he did basically always only engineering. He is an ex-employee of Bumble, and he was managing stuff for Bumble, the dating app. And and they will start just like you will think, oh, the user, oh, the these. They just start thinking and talking about, I don't know, latency or uh, delays or all sort of technical things that can happen related to whatever part they are dealing with at the moment. And you may just be like, what on earth are they talking about, right? Like, so the first thing is just to ask questions and understand. But I think right now, where you are at the stage where you're learning and you don't really have, maybe, hopefully, you don't have to worry at all about like working and getting a lot of stuff done. I would totally recommend you to take courses in this also because most innovation and most interesting things happen where all these disciplines meet or where different disciplines meet. For instance, for me, it was something related to culinary arts, my passion for coding, and my passion for design and having services and in some sort of way also dealing with money.
Okay, thank you so much. Do we have any other questions from the audience or people in the studio? I know you're joining on the same laptop, but you can use one of them to turn on the microphone to ask questions.
Yeah, hi, Michael. Can can you hear me?
I feel like you can also put the question in the chat box so I can read it or I can read it for you. Do we have other questions from the audience? Okay, and in the meantime, Michelle, I'm just gonna chat randomly. I'm kind of curious about like how you thought about this event. Like when we started inviting you, we asked you to reflect on your journey and maybe connect some of the experience you had after graduation to what you've learned from the course. Like what were you thinking about? Like is the most valuable that you can share with us? And after like getting some of the questions from the cohorts, do you have like any other advice or encouragement for the current students right now?
Sure. Yeah, I think the process is definitely the thing that was most helpful, and like the fact of repeating the process over and over and over again. That was definitely like really helpful because, and of course, like everything that is related to actually purchasing a course is the fact that you don't have to figure out what you don't know, right? That's probably one of the most valuable things, together with actually the people you're doing the course with. I still speak a lot with some of my course mates, and they always bring invaluable information regarding the industry um, or like for example anything you may have. So I think having a very close relationship with them and being in constant exchange of information, it's truly valuable, like within the course and outside. um, yeah, so I think those are definitely the things that I enjoy the most about the course and I found most useful. um, yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, just want to
Um,
say a quick hi. How are you, Michelle? So lovely to see you. Hi, Connie.
Hey,
Thank you
Hannah.
for holding fort. There was a bit of an emergency. I really could not get out of it. But yeah, so lovely to see you. And again, welcome back to the course, and we hope to see a lot more of you as well. Sorry, just continue. Just wanted to say a quick hi. Lots of question popping in there.
I'll read the chat. Nice to see you, Hannah. Do you have any suggestions or tips when creating a service design portfolio from scratch? When do you prioritize considering you feature the main highlights in a portfolio? So portfolio. So the main consideration for that is like to keep really in mind who you are doing this for, who is gonna read that. Like it seems silly, but like now we are hiring for various positions, and a lot of people, from the simple thing not naming with your name your CV or like your portfolio, this is like really annoying. Or like not having in mind what are they paying you for, right? So try to show really well these things, you know how to do it, that you think are bringing most value to the company. And then like keep in mind what company is it. If it's small, try to know who is the hiring manager, who is the person you're talking to. Like we're literally like two people right now and we're hiring, and some people are like, dear hiring manager. I'm like, didn't you even take a look at the company on LinkedIn? You can click it on people and see exactly who works there, right? Um, but like for portfolio specifically, I would say the things that best identify you as unique in what you're doing, and also at the same time relevant for the position you're applying for. So if you are applying as a service designer, show very well the process, give clear example, show as much of images of you doing stuff. If you have like get the feedback from the person that you have been working with, for example, if it's an organization, maybe from a specific individual you've worked with, and then write it down there, put their name, right? Ask them if you can put their name, and ask them maybe to give you a review on LinkedIn or anything like that. That can help because it's a social proof that you have done something. And try to gather as much evidence that you have done that, and in what way did it bring value to the company or organization you have done that for. And then also, most important, if you want to apply for an accelerator, show that you've worked with companies, right, with startups. If you want to apply for government, try to show about the organization in that area, because every vertical is different and has its ins and out. And then if they already sense that you have an idea of what is this about and that you have already worked or have done something related, that is going to be invaluable, right? Then other question. Thanks for the insightful talk. So UX designer need to strengthen and develop is currently highly competitive job market. I would say, I mean, first of all, that you know very well how to craft like the user experience, that you are aware of patterns, that you can display them. Like today, I was actually no, not today, yesterday, I was thinking if I were, I'm actually closing my service as a designer because I'm not gonna do any more design work. I'm just gonna do company work, ideally. Um, I was thinking actually I could write about UX pattern, UI patterns and see like how these affect the user and why you're doing what you're doing, right? And then maybe have like either a small blog or something like that, because or also even like something more video based right now because video consumption is super high. That just make it clear that you know what you're doing. That makes you as a trusted figure in whatever you're doing, and doesn't really matter if you think you know your stuff or don't, not really. Chances are you still don't know a lot of things, but the things that you're putting yourself out there, that you're trying to teach other people these things, will enhance your learning a lot. You will learn a lot faster, and then you will feel more comfortable with being uncomfortable, which is the, I think, the biggest thing. Like I see a lot of professionals that are very insecure about their skills, and this certainly doesn't put confidence on your coworkers. So just like try to put it out there and try to do it like and try to show people that you know, and be happy if people tell you, oh, you don't know this. It's a feedback, and you know, feedback is the most valuable thing you can get. So if people come, collaborate with others that do the same thing, right? So if there's other people that talk about UX or have blog, interact with them, try to build a community around it, because chances are also the jobs that they don't get because they may have already on, they may give it to you, you may pass it to them, you can exchange clients. It's really all about the community.
Okay, thank you so much. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Or Hannah, do you have some questions you want to ask?
There's another question that says that, first of all, thanks for the insightful talk. What kind of ability do you think UX designer needs to strengthen, develop in current highly competitive job market?
Yeah, I thought that was the one I was answering right now.
Oh, okay, so that's the one you just answered. Sorry. And also, I think another question that would be really useful is, because now at this point, everyone is starting to think about their major projects as well. And you remember, Michelle, that we were always kind of, really about start searching now, looking at things that interest you. And I think by this time, you guys, all of you have also experimented quite a bit as well. So you've done your work with, for example, this cohort now, by this time, they have worked with in the corporate organization that works with human resource, and now they're working on a completely social innovation project with refugees. So I think my question would be, or maybe you can, if you can highlight your experience and how you actually selected the topic that you wanted to work on. And then after graduation, the kind of things that you thought about when selecting that topic, like were you thinking only about, to be experimental and do what you really wanted to do, or were you thinking about your career at that time as well? Or, or were you also kind of looking at what's happening in the world around you and how you can contribute to it?
Absolutely. So I can start from the advice. The advice, it's like if you have in mind where you want to work, like which kind of company, which kind of organization, try to go as close as possible to these people, and maybe even do a project for them and like sell it as like a project for free and then combine the two things. If you do not have an idea of where you want to work, just pick something you're super passionate about and just pursue it. For me, it was like I was really interested in the startup ecosystem. I was truly fascinated by it and by all the actors in it and what do they do and how do they operate and why. Um, and basically, by researching, I started. It was kind of like directive and explorative in the sense that I was directing it towards this area, but then was explorative because kind of like the research led me to something. my prospects for finishing the course was like I went to take the course with the idea of like strengthen my abilities to make a company. In some way it did, in some others no, because like there's a lot of things related to actual business that are not related to the course, obviously, because it's not a business course. Um, but basically, I started researching, I started interviewing all the people in the startup ecosystem that I knew. And that startup ecosystem was the one back at home, the one I struggled to thrive into in the first place before coming to the course. Um, because I didn't know many other people. But then one person led to the other, and I end up to know a lot of like investors, other people that did startups previously, like startups, not just opening your company, right? So like trying to get to million users as quick as possible. Um, and then they talked about these. They talked about the problems they had in the ecosystem, the other things, and then some secondary research showed me how in other environment it was, and I end up to meet someone that was connecting the ecosystem in Italy with the ecosystem in the Silicon Valley, and I ended up going actually to the Silicon Valley and talking with these people and people doing startups there. And then it really highlighted the difference of like what probably was needed in our ecosystem and then what was there, and some things were completely unfeasible, right? So then the filtering of like what is feasible, what is desirable, right, what is viable, helped a lot. And it was funny because at the end of the day I ended up actually charging for this project, right? So we with this same organization, it kind of ended up being a business itself, and we were actually proposing it to the Italian government. But in the end, like I realized I didn't want to work in Italy or with Italian people. And no offense, it's just politics at work, and I don't love that. And like yeah, in the end I just changed path and did something else, and I say okay, I'll learn more if I just do some more freelancing in the UK and then go along with things I want to do within the things I want to do, right? But ideally, like things played out ideally, like I just did it, right? um, so whether you want to start a project from there, go on, like pick something that you're most passionate about. Then if you think you don't know what you really are passionate about, just think back, how do you spend most of your time? Look around yourself, and you'll find out that even if you think you don't have a hobby or something you're really passionate about, you really do, you're just not aware of it.
Yes. Thank you. I think that was a brilliant answer, but it also kind of leads me to then the other question is that if you go back in time a little bit, and your time on the MA, and I remember your whole group, it was really energetic, a very energetic group that you guys were very proactive and everything. But what would there be anything that you would do differently, like to take more advantage of being at LCC, looking at the facilities, looking at whatever is being offered?
What to take advantage more of? I would say 100% try to um, make good friends with people that are not within your profession. So within UIL, it could be like if you're vaguely interested in fashion, then to hang out with people that do fashion or journalism, or I think journalism would be a really good topic right now.
Yeah.
Because of misinformation, like it's booming, right? And with the rise of AI, it's directly proportional to the amount of misinformation, right? But um, yeah, totally, like just create connection, go to meetup, meet people in that do things different than you, and try to make a really strong network, or go to more events that are also within design industry and not design industry,
Mm, mm,
and try really to do even small project or anything, just so that you can see how it is to actually make something happen, because it's really really hard. And then it's even harder later on if you do not have these connections. It's all about the people at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
You could
Great.
be the best person in your
Yeah.
discipline, but if you don't know and people don't like you, will not do it.
Yeah. And also my last question is, because I know you kind of you're also very experimental, and then you've tried one thing and then you wanted to explore further more and went into the different areas. So I would just, my last question. So I think within, if you kind of think about your skills that you learn, for example, like critical thinking or collaborating or communication or whatever, so which set of skills would you say was most useful for you post graduation, after you went into the professional field?
That I gained at the university, or
Yes,
that I had to learn?
that you gained at the university.
I think, I mean, critical thinking, I think was a really good one, because coming from an Italian background, people like you're not taught
Mm,
to think that much critically. You're taught more to just repeat after me, right? Or to just go as things that are being said to you. And I think it's true for many countries, and more recently even more. So that 100%. I think I've also learned to be more social. Like I've always been a very introverted individual, so like which is weird. A lot of people tell me you're the most extroverted person I know, and I don't feel like that at all. So like I think like being social, um, and to read the room, I think that's pretty valuable.
yeah, yeah, that's a good one, to read the room, to kind of develop that understanding that, the again, it's being human centered. It's kind of thinking about who you're talking to and what is relevant to them.
Yeah, like being also a lot of like political mind, and also a bit of carelessness as well, in the sense of like everyone minds their own business, right? But not many minds the what's going on in others people life, or what are their interests. So it's like a mix of being political and being empathetic. But if you only have one of the two, then it's still kind of like a problem. So that's what I mean by read
Yeah,
the room.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. Connie, over to you.
Okay, so we had a round of questions earlier. I just want to ask if the audience has any other things you want to discuss, or you are curious you would like to ask Michelle. And the other questions I had are already covered by Hannah, so thank you so much.
It's so lovely to see you again, Michele.
The last advice that came to my mind related to the question of before, related to UX, like just don't try to throw every skill at them. People know that you can only be as good as a few skills, right? So choose a handful, I would say top 3 or 4 that you're really good at and you really want to deepen your knowledge on, and then go for those.
Excellent. Okay, then I think we'll close. If there are no more questions, we'll close the session.
Okay, so thank you so much, Michelle, for coming, and thank you all the audience. And so, if you have any other questions, you could message me, and I could pass them on to the speaker. And definitely remember to check out Synergy Foods, the platform like Michelle launched earlier. So let's wrap up here today, and thank you everyone for participating.
Thank you. Have a lovely day.